Now, of course, the first date, when is symposium, right? Friday, August 12th. So that should be in your calendars. That is a date you should know. It is a date that your mentor should know as well, because you will not be participating in your research on that day. You will be participating in a symposium. So definitely, if you have not put Friday, August 12th all day in your calendar, get that in. It is going to be online presentations, so we'll have some adjustments to what we normally do in symposium. Okay, so first, what happens at symposium? We usually start with a keynote speaker. We have a fabulous ASE alum that's going to be talking this year, and they're a surgical resident at OHSU and know many of the things you've gone through, and we get to hear all about their journey in the professional world after they've graduated. So that should be exciting. We always usually do some recognitions. There are a lot of people that contribute to making this happen, and we always want to make sure we're recognizing those. I think August 12th. No, it's a Thursday this year. Oh, bad, Miss Johnson. I got my date right, but my day of the week. They're usually on Friday. This year, symposium's on a Thursday. You're correct. Thank you for correcting me. Look at that. See, this is why you should practice even more in front of an audience before you do this. Thank you. What are you going to do? After our keynote speaker and our recognitions, you're going to give an oral presentation, much like I am giving. So we need to go through some agenda items today. I'm going to talk a little bit about the symposium title and registration. So how do you register? Why do we need to worry about a title? I'm going to talk a little bit about what makes a good online presentation. Now, I will admit I'm breaking some of the rules I'm going to give you, but that's because this slide is also used as a document you can refer to later. So I'm putting a lot more text in here than I normally would in a presentation. We'll talk about the actual specifications, like the actual oral presentation specs. At the end, after symposium, you'll also have thank you letters. And your last thing this summer will be summary statements. So it's all about the symposium, but I'm going to talk about some others as well, which is thank you letters and summary statements. So symposium is August 12th, which is a Thursday. So symposium titles. These are something we want to start working on starting now, if you haven't already. It will be at the same time you register. So when you register for symposium, you will also be putting in what title it is of your talk. So some titles we've had in the past. We've got your rack, Discovering Engineering at Yakima Products. That's kind of an exciting one. It draws you in. It makes you want to go and watch it. You could pick a title like that's actually catchy. Some titles are a little bit more just straightforward and scientific. An analysis of the conductivity of NCAP polymer adhesives through impedance spectroscopy. I don't know what that is, but someone who does know what that is might see that and say, oh, cool, that's in my field, I want to watch. But if I'm not in that field, I don't know what that is. And one that's kind of in between. It's catchy, but it's also scientific. Recovery and digitization of historic tide data. It's short, it's sweet, it's catchy a little bit, and it doesn't have a lot of scientific words. Which of these types should you choose? Part of it depends on your mentor, their position, and their opinion. You want to run through the title ideas with your mentor. So think about a title, something that sums up what it is you're going to talk about, what you're doing this summer. And then present it to your mentor and brainstorm. Some mentors want some catchy ones like we got your rack. Other mentors might prefer the second, and maybe some might prefer the third. So what one you end up on has a lot to do as well with your mentor. So get some ideas down, start thinking about those ideas, because online registrations are due, hopefully this is a Friday, July 30th at noon. So on July 30th at noon, by that time, you need to be registered with a title. Can I register early? As soon as you get the link from ASE emailed to you, which will happen soon, if you have a title, go for it. Yay, July 30th is a Friday. I got it right this time. You know, if that's the only error in the presentation, I'll take it. So as soon as you get the email, you get the link. If you have a symposium title already prepped and you've already discussed it with your mentor, feel free to register early. In fact, as an ACE program manager, I am sure they would appreciate it if everybody was registered before the due date. It's a little less anxiety. You're not waiting on 20 people being like, oh no, do they have a title? So register as soon as you can. Do we have any questions on symposium titles or registration? And I am reading the chat, so you can put your question in the chat, or you can unmute. But the chat is the easiest way to do it. Okay, I will remind you of this later. Where can you find the recording of this meeting? The recording of this meeting will be found in the same place that you will find the ACE Symposium Handbook, as well as this presentation, which will be on the Saturday Academy website. They will post it there as soon as they can. Okay, so now let's talk about your actual presentation, right? And I'll actually answer that, Carolyn. Good question. If two people are presenting, is it one registration? No, you would both separately register. And usually in the registration, there's a question that says, are you presenting with a partner? And you would then notify us that you are actually wanting to present together. That will change some of the specs of your presentation, and I'll talk about that. So should the titles be similar to article titles, Joshua? It depends on your mentor. Usually it's better to have something that's catchy but tells us what you're going to do. But there are some mentors that really do want to keep the title precisely what it is that maybe you're doing. So really talk to your mentor and brainstorm with them, because they'll have their own ideas as well, because you are representing them in their group, their university, their business, and so they will have a say in it. Do you choose to present with a partner, or is that assigned? You will be in groups of 9, and I'll go over that in just a second. Partner presentations would only occur if you are doing the same internship at the same location. So sometimes, often we have multiple interns, say working for Nike, and they're both working on the same project, and they would like to present together because they don't necessarily have unique stories because they're working on the same project. Those two individuals may choose to present together, and you would notify us of that when you register. And then some of you will actually change when it comes to like how long the presentation is. Other than that, they are going to try to keep interns together in terms of the actual room. But if you're not working directly with another intern doing the exact same project, you'll be presenting on your own in a room with people as your audience. So I hope that clarifies, and I'll go over some more of this as we go. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about good presentations, specifically when it comes to some scientific type research stuff. And a lot of it has to do with, so what? Now, I did a rookie mistake. You know what the rookie mistake was? I clicked shared screen. Oh, there it is. No, it doesn't always default to sharing sound. So I wanted to double check. Okay, so this is just a quick video that specifically talks about when you are giving a talk, and it might have some researchy, sciencey jargon in it. What are some really good tips to give a good research presentation? And I think this is really applicable to the audience, because the audience matters. And this is going to be really helpful for the audience you're going to be presenting to at symposium.
Giving a seminar or conference presentation is a lot like a job interview. The one thing that people often make the mistake of in a job interview is to tell the interviewers everything that they've done. And what's missing is the so what factor, the why is this significant? And of course, that's the thing that the job interviewer wants to hear. It's the same at a conference or at a seminar. Your audience wants to know the so what. Why they should be interested in it. Why is this important? How is it relevant? When I first started giving presentations, I felt that I had to convey all of the information I had, all of the research that I'd done. The temptation is to try and over-impress your audience with how difficult your idea is, how complicated your idea is, and the level of terminology. It's very tempting to go into using a lot of jargon. I would really recommend starting in a different place. When I focus on communicating to my audience, rather than trying to just tell them everything I know, then I can do that a lot more efficiently. So a good question to ask is, what do they need to know? What will they be most interested in knowing? Imagine that you only have 3 minutes to communicate your research, often to a broader audience, so think beyond just a very specialized audience. It will help you to get rid of the jargon and the very dry bits of your research. You want to communicate it in a way that will excite people. What you want to tell them about is what you're doing with it, what you're aiming for, what your big idea is, what excites you about it, why this is important, that so what statement. Experiment with explaining your ideas to a colleague or a friend, preferably someone who knows a little bit about your discipline, but someone who doesn't know everything about what you do, because you want to explain to them in a way that they will understand. When you can explain it in a way that they really get, that they understand, that they're interested in, that they ask questions about your research, then you know that you've nailed it. If you can do that for them, and they may or may not be friends or colleagues, they will give you an honest answer. You will get an honest impression, even from whether their eyes glaze over, whether they look interested, whether they ask questions, whether they ask appropriate questions. If they're looking confused, it's possible that you may need to provide more detail. If they're looking bored, you're possibly using too much jargon and very dry ideas that you haven't explained fully. If you've got their full attention, it sounds to me like you've got the right balance of an intriguing topic where you're explaining things that's new information to them, but you're explaining it in a way that they can really get. And most importantly, they can see the bigger picture. How is this going to be applicable in the broader scheme of things, in the broader world? If they can see that potential, you've done a good job. You've done your job.
You can get more study tips.
So, thinking about a good presentation. First of all, practice this. If you actually don't know the so what of your project, that's really easy to do. Kind of get bogged down into learning the skill that you're trying to finish and not understand what's the bigger picture. I know I spent all of last summer and this summer cloning bacteria, and I really had to constantly ask, like, what's the bigger picture of this research other than getting this bacteria to accept this gene? Because that was where it got really interesting and fascinating. So if you haven't asked that question, so what, why is this important? What's the bigger picture? What's the bigger goal of your mentor? Do that. It's really good to practice a 3-minute talk. Now your talks are gonna have to be more than 3 minutes. But if you can sum it up what you can do in 3 minutes and the person can understand what it was that you're doing, then you have a starting place to add detail. Some of you have already experienced this difficulty when you had to be interviewed by your teacher monitors. And we said, what are you studying this summer? And you're like, and it was kind of difficult for a couple of reasons. One was because it was early in your internship. As you move through your internship, you're going to have a better idea of what it is that you do. But it's also really hard sometimes to explain what you're doing to someone who's not a part of it. And yet the audience at a symposium is going to be a varied assortment of experts, interns that maybe are studying something similar, interns that aren't studying anything similar, and maybe even parents. So create a good balance of creating a good presentation that tells what your story, but doesn't get too jargony, and knowing when to put in the words that you need is really important. But don't forget, this is all about practice. The whole point of symposium is to give you an experience of what real researchers have to do, which is to present what they're doing with excitement to other people of a variety of audiences. So this is practice. It's about showcasing the cool stuff. It's about sharing your enthusiasm. So enjoy the process and always get the help of your mentors. Almost all mentors will have you practice your presentation, because preparing and practicing is really the best way to go about getting a good presentation. In terms of some of the just nitty-gritty good ideas, many of you may already know some of this, but it's good to remind you. And this is where my presentation fails. You should cut down on text when giving a presentation. My presentation is being used as a document later, so mine has too much text. Anytime you can use an image or a picture instead of words, do it. The words can come from you. The explanation can come from you. We don't need the sentences on the screen, right? You can provide that. Keep in mind though, when you're using images, to ensure that you're actually following copyright laws and you're getting them, they're either your images you took or you're getting them from a source that you're allowed to share. If you take images of your actual workplace or the actual work that you do, please make sure that you've asked your mentor and you've shown your mentor what images those are, so that you do have permission to share them, as some of the research that happens at certain facilities is proprietary and cannot be shared. Almost all mentors will go through your slides, but if they don't ask, offer. We've had images in the past where I distinctly remember a gentleman jumping from the audience and blocking the camera physically and being like, let's just pretend we didn't see because he went through the poster, he didn't go through the presentation slide by slide. We don't want that happening. If you do have text, try to make it easy to read. For example, I just gave you a text that was long. Now I'm following it by something very short. That helps processing. I can be processing the first sentence and the second one's very short. So using easy to read, making sure the font is easy to read. It's not crazy. There's not a lot of movement and you have contrast. So like yellow writing, not so good. In terms of the order in which you should make the presentation, every journey and every internship is slightly different. These are just some guidelines. But again, talk to your mentor. They're going to be practiced in making these presentations and they'll help you along the way. And they might have their own style. Every time you give a presentation and you're representing a company, the company itself will have their own style of how they would like presentations to be given. So you might modify them, but this is just kind of a general roadmap you could use with, but it could be modified. It's always good to start with a what, right? What was the problem that you're trying to solve or you're researching? What's the question that you're trying to answer? And again, you have such a variety of internships. It might not be a problem, it might be a question, or it might be a task you're trying to achieve. Let us know what that is at the beginning. That tells us what we're going to actually be learning about. The so what, the why, right? Possible significance of your problem or question. What's the purpose of your question? What are you doing? Why do we need to know this? Like, why is it significant? If you're cloning E. coli, why do we need to care about cloning E. coli? Why is this important? Where is it going? Will your mentors be providing your topic? Your topic is your internship. So yeah, your mentor you should know exactly what it is that you're doing right by now. And so that task or that project would be in place of a problem or a question. Yeah. If you have multiple tasks or projects, you are going to be limited in time. I will say this, you will think it's hard to fill the minutes that you're required to speak. It will not be. I think what you're actually going to find when you make these presentations is, how do I eliminate it? How do I get rid of things that I thought were so important, but I don't have the time to prepare? And so that's talking to your mentor like, hey, so I have this symposium presentation. They should know that that's coming, especially if they've done these before. If you have a new mentor, we might have to explain to them. And if you need help doing that, contact your teacher monitor. They're a great resource. I'll go through the specs next. Number 3 is specs. But say to them, say, hey, I feel like I'm completing 5 different tasks, but I need to give a good presentation. How might I start my presentation given that I'm doing these 5 tasks? And they will probably have a good idea. Well, you're doing 5 tasks, but really you're solving one problem for us, or you're really trying to get this done, answer this question. Or they might say, you're correct, but really these 2 tasks are very minor and off to the side. I want you to focus on these 3. Right? And so and then you find a unifying way. So I would have a conversation with your mentor if you're trying to streamline. And we'll talk about the specs and how long the presentation is next. When you do the presentation, you should state kind of what it is that you're doing. Why is it important? And then how did you do it? Right? Do you have procedures? Did you get any results? Did you complete these tasks? Did you complete these projects? What did the completed task or project look like? What was the result? Anytime you have graphs or visuals is great. Some of these research are really, really, really good at making graphs. Some of you are like, how would I make a graph out of this? You may not have something that has data that's really graphic, but you probably have visuals that you could share about what your final thing should look like. And then again, go back to what she talked about, the so what. Why is this significant? Why do you need to complete these tasks? These mentors are not just wasting your time. They see these tasks as important, and they are. Why are they important? What's the significance of them? How does it fit into the larger picture, even maybe for the company? And then what now? It's really good. You all leave the internship, but what you did stays and oftentimes is launched off of. In fact, many of you may be working off previous ASE interns research and work. So the next question is even asking your mentor, when I'm done with this project or task, what's going to be done with it? Where are you going next? Because their job doesn't end. They still have lots of years left. So at, some sort of conclusion, like what are the future directions for this work? How is this work going to be used? And that kind of gets back into the so what. Those might not be very separate depending on how your presentation goes. I know you all want us just to give you an example presentation, right? You want us to give you a formula. I'm going to kind of give you that, but the reality is all of your adventures are different. All of your accomplishments are different. If you're showcasing your accomplishment and sharing your enthusiasm, then you're doing a good job. So you're not going to get a slide 1 should be this, slide 2 should be this, you should have this many slides, because it depends on the presentation and the style. And some of that depends on what you're doing and who you're working for. Sorry, I'm not going to give you that. Here's the equation. This is a general equation. Start with the big idea. What's the big idea? Add some details. And then summarize the so what and what you got. So start with something big, like a question. Here's what we were trying to find. Give some details about it and summarize it. And of course, prepare it, practice it, re-prepare it, practice it, re-prepare it, practice it. Do this many times. Her advice of doing this in front of a varied audience is really good advice. Ask your parents or your folks to watch your presentation. Ask your mentor to watch. Ask your friend to watch. Practice this presentation as much as you can, and you'll get different tips and tricks from each of those people. And that will help you refine your presentation so that you're ready to go on symposium day. Okay, so here's the one you all want to know, right? You want to know the specs, right? Raghavi there was like, how long? Just tell me how long. I just need to know how long. This is the specs, right? Okay, the details. First of all, the sessions will not be in Zoom. We're actually going to be doing symposium in something called Big Marker. I've actually never used that before, but it's very, very user-friendly. And I've been told if you have navigated Zoom successfully, Big Marker should be easy and not a big deal of any kind. Part of the reason we're using Big Marker is this year we can have guests watch, mentors can watch. So once you know your time slot, you won't know your room and all of that until you register. So at some point you'll get your registration. Your mentors will actually be able to go into Big Marker and watch your presentation. So can any other guests. If you have family or friends, or maybe your favorite science teacher, I would have loved to have been invited to these if I had a student. They can be invited in and they can attend, and Zoom wouldn't allow us that feature. So we're doing this in Big Marker, just as a heads up. Each session has about 9 presenters. So you know how Zoom has breakout rooms to reduce numbers? Big Marker is similar. We're going to break you into sessions, into groups, and those groups will have approximately 9 interns that are each going to present their presentation. Your talk should be between 10 and 12 minutes. So that is the prepare and practice. Prepare and practice. You get to 9 minutes. That means we need to add some more details. We need to explain some more. We need to get to that minute. Keep in mind that when you present, when you're nervous, you do tend to present faster than when you're when you're comfortable. So your presentation you tend to speed up your talk. The way you can get around that though is a lot of practice so that you know you're going to nail that 10 to 12 minute time frame. So in 10 to 12 minutes, we need your big idea, we need your details, we need your summary of your summer, right? Does the presentation have to be a slideshow or can it be a poster? I would recommend a slideshow. We are doing this like I am doing this. So if you just had a single poster, you would be sitting for 10 minutes staring at the same screen because we'd be looking at one picture the whole time. And what we should do is slideshows should take you through your journey, right? So each slide has a purpose and is taking you through your journey. That slideshow does need to be shared with your teacher monitor. So something like Google Slides, that's really easy because you can just digitally click the share button and share it with your teacher monitor. If it's something like PowerPoint, it might be that you need to email that to your teacher monitor. So whatever slideshow kind of software it is that you use to create your slideshow, please make sure you've shared that with your teacher monitor. That is because teacher monitors oftentimes will be the ones that are proctoring and running those presentations. And I have had situations where a slideshow works really well when the student is by themselves, but when they log into a platform that has video like Zoom now, and they try to load their presentation, their computer bogs down. because the presentation is such a large file and it couldn't handle the large file and the Zoom and the big marker presentation. So it's always good to have a backup. Anytime you give a presentation, it's good to have a backup plan. And I know last year, because the student had shared the Google slideshow with me, their computer couldn't, it was too slow. I just presented for them and they would just say, next slide, please. And I would click for them instead of them doing it themselves. And it was fine because we had that backup plan. Joint talks. So let's say you and another intern are working on the exact same project. It probably wouldn't make a ton of sense for each of you to do a different your own presentation when the presentations are probably going to be pretty close to identical. So that might be a time when you want to do a joint talk where both of you are going to be talking in one presentation. However, that would double the time. So if two of you are going to be presenting at the same time,
work, team. Thank you for all your
just one second, that's my summer school. We'll talk about choosing the location of your presentations. Don't choose a school.
Thank you.
I'm in the middle of summer school. I have 120 learning about agricultural research and ag science this week. And so I peeled away from my 120 middle schoolers to do this presentation. We're going to go to the next one of the next slides, which is proper place. This is not a good place if you're doing a presentation. So joint talks double in time. So that would be 20 to 24 minutes. You would have one person that would be the presenter, right? So you would just share one slide deck. One of you would be like, okay, I'll advance the slides. We have had students do it in different ways. We have had students alternate slides. One student would speak for the first slide, the next student would speak for the second slide, or we've had them just split the presentation in half. One student took the first 10 minutes and the second student took the second 10 minutes. So if you do a joint talk, that's totally allowable, but it does double your time. So each of you need to be presenting for approximately 10 to 12 minutes each. Does that help answer the questions for you in the chat about joint talks? Okay. While you are not presenting, it says if you are not presenting. It should say while you aren't presenting. There are 9 of you in there. So you're going to give your presentation, but then once you're done with your presentation, you become an audience member immediately. So once you're done with your presentation, before and after your presentation, you are an audience member. So we're going to ask you to stay keyed in, stay watching, and you're going to help us in the question and answer. Some of the best questions come from you all. And you get to see what all the other interns are doing this summer. And it's like, whoa, I didn't know all this stuff was happening. So please, if you're not the person actively presenting, be an active audience member and really participate during that question and answer section. Because it's always feels really good when people ask questions, right? So any questions about oral presentations? This is the stuff you're really waiting for. It's why I shove it right in the middle.
I received a chat about videos in the presentation. So do you want to answer that for everybody as well, just in case they have the same question?
Can you show, is the question, because I didn't see it, I can't see that.
Yes, sorry. So they asked, can you add 15 to 30 second video clips to their presentation if they think it will have a significant contribution?
I think you should. I think that's an amazing idea. I think that's awesome. I mean, what's better than a picture? A moving picture. Way better. So absolutely. And there are definitely some internships where that would really make sense. So it would really depend on your internship whether that would really make sense. We have some students doing some really cool 3D modeling. And we've had students in the past like embed this video where it like showed the 3D model rotating, and that was really, you will only present once. So once you present, you can take a deep breath, and then you're just an audience that's participating and enjoying watching the other presentations. There was one question in here. I don't know how Big Marker works, so this is probably better for Maura. Are there only other interns in the room? Everyone else is watching a stream, or is everyone in the room? So when you break them into their 9 presenters, how does that work?
Yeah, so let's say, you know, in the first session, There will be 9 interns presenting there, and your mentor and your parent want to go into that session because that's where you're going to be. And so they can join the conference, the Big Marker conference, and then they'll be able to click into that session, much like a breakout room, but the group won't be able to see their camera or their audio or anything because they'll just be audience members, but we will be able to see you all because you all will be presenting. So it'll be similar to a breakout room, but with more abilities, more similar to a conference.
And then will there be, will they know the order of their presentations or have any input on which order they take?
Yes. Yes, it'll be an ordered presentation after registration. So like Stacey said, please register on time.
Okay. And usually I would answer those, but I wasn't sure about the Big Marker's a little different. We haven't done that before. Usually in the past, you got whatever order you were put in. So usually in the past, you didn't have necessarily you don't have the ability to necessarily be like, can I be first? But you will be told in what order you are in and what session you're in so that your guests can join the proper session. And then the guests will be like audio only. You'll be the only video. Okay. What attire is required? I love you all. You know why? Because your questions, exactly what this presentation is covering. That's a good question. I am going to cover proper attire. Any other questions on specs before I move on? Okay, so talking about online presentations, speak clearly and with a proper volume when you're presenting online. And I would say this year, you all probably have a lot more experience than last year because of all the online learning we've done. But it's much more difficult to follow a person's oral presentation when it's an online format. So you really have to be very careful at making sure you're speaking with a proper volume. You're not blowing out the speakers, but you're also not too quiet, and that you're emphasizing and enunciating to make your words clear. I'm going to be honest, I'm a very fast talker, and it is very hard for me to be speaking like I am right now because I'm a crazy fast talker, but I've definitely gotten much better because of this. At the camera, you saw this in the video earlier. She did not do a good job of looking at the camera. It's really easy to be staring down here or staring down here. But you really want to know where your camera is and try to look at the camera because that's going to feel like you're connecting with your audience. Although it's a lot easier in this because my slide and my camera are right next to each other, right? Mind your surroundings. Do you have proper light? Can they hear you? Do you have background noise? Do you have a summer school supervisor that gets on an intercom and wants to interrupt? Maybe don't present there. Find a different location. My house, I wouldn't present at my house. I have hound dogs. They bark whenever there's any movement of organisms anywhere outside. So really like being mindful of like what is a good place for you to be in. Practice speaking while advancing. You should know what's coming next when you click. And if you're not speaking, mute yourself. Most of these things we're really pretty good at because we've been practicing. And of course, please make sure you include the Saturday Academy logo in your presentation, that we want to give representation to Saturday Academy and the ACE program. And you may want to include any other company or organizational logos. Ask your mentor for this proper representation of your internship site. So logos are a big deal. Making sure you're using the right one is important. And some mentors would really like you to place that on your slides. So ask your mentor about their representation as well. Can you use virtual backgrounds? Mara, I don't know. Mara, can they use virtual backgrounds in Big Marker?
To be determined. As I find that information, I will email it out.
Okay. And I believe that in the past, the logo for Saturday Academy has been on their website. Yeah. Can you use notes on paper? Yes. These, oh, you probably can't see it because it's blue. These are my notes. I have them on paper and I have them next to me. I actually have a stand so I can, anytime you see me glancing to the left, I'm looking at my notes to make sure I'm not forgetting something. What you don't want to do is just like any presentation, we don't want your head down reading the notes. Can't hear you very well. And that also is, means you're probably not as practiced. Always good to have notes as a backup. Just make sure that you're practiced in your presentation and not just reading straight from those notes. Okay. Symposium dress attire, someone asked. You should be dressing professionally. So collared shirt, a nice, but keep in mind, these are, this is how symposium would usually be, but we're in a different. So when we talk about symposium dress attire in the digital world, it's more like this, right? Making sure that this part of your body looks very professional, because that's the part we're going to see. You know, I don't know if you have sweatpants on or not, right? So yes, you want to dress professional. Doesn't mean you need to go out and spend a bunch of money if you don't own professional clothes. No, you know, go to Goodwill, go to a secondhand shop and get a nice top. Don't break the bank on this. But definitely dress in a professional attire. Keep in mind that you're not just representing yourself, you're representing the organization in which you're interning. So U of O, OSU, HP, you are also representing them. You're not just representing yourself. So dressing appropriately. And if you're like, I just don't know, again, ask your mentor. They are a really good connection. And you also have your teacher monitors. They also will have some opinions as well. Okay. Okay, questions before this video. Do we have any more questions on symposium? Because we're almost done with symposium stuff. Where do you put the logo? You can put them on the first slide. On the last slide, you usually will end your presentations with thank yous, right? It's really good to be grateful and thankful. So sometimes students will put them at the end and say they want to thank Saturday Academy for the opportunity, as well as, and then list their organization and their mentors. Some students put them at the start, and I've also seen some students put them on every single slide. All of those work. Yep, all of those work. Or in my case, I just made a digital background. That was a really good one, right? Oh, the question and answer. How did that not show up on that? I'm not sure why. Oh, I'm sorry, y'all. The question and answer is 3 minutes. Yeah, so it's 10 to 12 minutes of presentation and 3 minutes of question and answer. Yeah, not a lot of time. So question and answer, good question, that's 3 minutes. Should have looked at my notes. Okay, I debate whether I want to show this video, but this video was actually made by an ACE intern, and it's only a minute long, and it does a good job. Now this year we're on Big Marker, it's a little different. So this video was made for symposium prep when we're actually in person, doing in-person presentations. But I still think most of what it says in this presentation applies, even though it's an online format. So I am gonna play it. Who can ask questions? Anyone in the panel. So that would be other ACE interns, teacher monitors, if mentors come, guests, they'll have the ability, access to audio and have the ability to ask questions. Yeah. And last year, oopsies. Last year, teacher monitors kind of helped with that process. So kind of watching the chat and and calling on people that had questions. Good question. You all have such good questions. I love doing this presentation because you have such good questions. Okay, so this is a quick what to expect when presenting at the ACE Symposium. This is in person. However, a lot of the stuff still applies.
Our first speaker this morning is Lauren Haynes. Lauren is a student at Jesuit High School. She did her research under the direction of Dr. Elliot Spindle and Dr. Lindsay Shorey.
So Vernier is a company that creates data collection tools to be used in the classroom. Previously, ways to collect data would use LabQuest or TI or their newest addition, which is called graphical analysis.
Gatsby is a cybersecurity and virus protection company. They also do a lot of enterprise software policy enforcement and computer management.
So my main job this summer was to pick out a database and store automation test results in this database, and from there query these results so that they could be displayed in some sort of way.
Seeing these competitions are cryptography, web exploitation, binary exploitation, and reverse engineering.
Thank you for listening, and I'll be happy to take any questions.
So even though that's the in-person form, it still applies, and that's how it's going to be. You'll be introduced, you'll go in order, You'll present 10 to 12 minutes, 20 to 24 if you're joint presenting, and then you'll have some questions at the end, and then you can breathe and become an audience member who asks questions and enjoys all of it, hopefully. If you're feeling slightly overwhelmed, we have things to support you, right? We have the ASE Symposium Handbook that we found on the Saturday Academy's website. You have your teacher monitor. You can ask us, teacher monitors. We have helped do lots of presentations, and many of us are experienced with symposium. Our mentors are an excellent resource. They know what it means to present. They know the nervousness. And so they really can be a valuable resource on what a good presentation would be given your internship. And of course, this talk, it is being recorded. So they will place it online, and these slides will also be available to you. So moving on to the last two things that are due this summer, gratitude, right? None of this is possible without the mentors that you have in your internship. So we have you write thank you letters to them. We have you first turn them into your teacher monitors by August 6th. That's so that the teacher monitor can glance through it and just make sure it's an appropriate thank you letter. We're not going to look at every single word, but we are going to look through them and make sure they're appropriate. And then they will be passed on to your mentors. When you do a thank you letter, personal and specific. So if you had a grad student helping you that was hilarious and was always happy and you just loved their humor, say that. Your patience and sense of humor made my long hours seem short. You know, that's personalized. That means you paid attention to how they helped you. Make sure it's sincere and heartfelt, right? If you sincerely thank these individuals who gave you this opportunity. Seeing you and other scientists enthusiastic about science has inspired my own interest. If you are inspired, tell them that. They want to hear that. That's why they do this. And just keep in mind that you need to show appreciation. At some point you should say, I really appreciate, and then make sure it's specific and it's heartfelt. I appreciate you giving me this amazing opportunity and mentoring me. So make sure when you're expressing gratitude, it's always personal, it's sincere, it's heartfelt. Personalized also means if you're writing 3 thank you letters to 3 individuals that work at the same facility, the thank you letters need to be different. If they're personalized, they're different. Might some of the themes be similar? Yes. But you don't want to write one letter and copy it 3 times and then hand it out. It becomes very awkward if they get together like, oh, it's so sweet. Stacey wrote me a thank you letter. Oh, she wrote one to me too. And they compare letters and it's the same letter. It doesn't feel sincere when that happens. So make sure you personalize it a little bit. Whoa, I don't know what just happened. That was weird. A lot of people trying to get a hold of me today, apparently. And again, those letters are due to teacher monitors August 6th. We do have proper form for making a letter. If you've never typed a letter to someone before, that's a thing. I'm sure some of you have not done that before. We do have example letters that you can find on the Saturday Academy website, just as a heads up. And then the very, very last thing should not be a huge deal, but you do are your summary reports due at the end of the summer, August 16th. So right soon after symposium. It's just in your own words, what work and contributions did you make over the summer? A lot of it's going to be covered in your symposium anyway. So once you make your symposium presentation, writing your summary report's pretty easy. And it's a really user-friendly form fill-in format that ACE will be sending out. So at the end of the summer, ACE will send out this summary report form. It's a fill-in format. And once you've made your symposium talk, it's really not a huge thing to be able to have to do. It really is just asking in your own words what your contributions were over the summer. So just to remind you, should the thank you letters be printed and mailed, or will they be shared online? Oh, good question, Oscar. As a teacher monitor, you can just share them with me online. Again, if you make them in it as a Google Doc, just send me the link. Or if you made them in Microsoft Word or something else, just send them to me. If you make it in something that's like, or in not a format that any computer can open, sometimes it's good to maybe save it as a PDF, a general format that anyone can open, and just email it to your teacher monitor. So anything like that works. Yeah. So it'll be they'll be shared online. Mara, this year, are you still just having them submit their thank you letters digitally, or are you having them mail physical letters to you?
That's correct. Digital submission, and then ACE takes care of the physical letters. So the interns don't have to worry about the printing themselves.
There you go. All right, to summarize what your next steps are. Number one, make sure right away you discuss your presentation title and content with your mentor. Get on that, right? Start it now so it doesn't become a really big task that has to be done at the last second. Remember, you need to register by July 30th at noon. You need to have your title, and then you'll register for symposium by Friday, July 30th. Make sure you prepare and practice that 10 to 12 minute 20 to 24 if you're doing a joint talk. ACE is going to email you a list of thank you letter recipients by the end of July. So they'll email saying, don't forget, you need to write a letter to these 3 people that were in your group. And you'll share those thank you letters with your teacher monitor digitally for review by Friday, August 6th. And the last thing is submitting your summary by Wednesday, August 16th. All right. Again, remember, this is all about sharing your accomplishments, sharing your enthusiasm, getting a research talk experience, which is an important part of the field, and really just seeing what everybody else was doing in the state of Oregon. All right. Any questions? And I want to thank Saturday Academy for giving me this opportunity to talk with you all today. Any last minute questions? Okay.
Thank you, Stacey.
Like
I just want to clarify really quickly that the interns do not have to submit their thank you letters to their mentors. They are only submitting them to their teacher monitors.
Yep. So send the teacher monitors your thank you letters. We'll look through them. We'll respond to you and say, yep, looks good. You'll send them to ACE. And then ACE will go through and print them so that they get this physical copy of a thank you letter and mail them for you.
Mm-hmm.
You do not have to give them directly to your mentors. You're giving them to your teacher monitor to look over, and then you send them to ACE, and ACE will do all of the printing and make sure they get to where they need to go.
Exactly. Yes. I have a question here. Are we allowed to do live demos if we are making something like an app?
Yes, we've seen that in the past many times where they would actually like open up the app and like exit out of their, sometimes they'll exit out of their slideshow and actually open up the app and like show a simulation of what they're doing. That is always, we've done this plenty of times. That sounds fantastic. Just make sure it's worked into your 10 to 12 minutes and you've practiced it really thoroughly to ensure your computer can handle it and people can see it. And have a backup plan if for some reason it didn't work. So if you can't, say the demo doesn't work for some reason, because technology is weird and sometimes it just, when you need it to work, it doesn't. Make sure that if you're going to put that into your presentation, that the rest of the presentation could still stand on its own 2 legs. So if for some reason you can't show that demo because it's not working, we can still follow the rest of what's happening. Does that make sense? Versus if everything is hinged upon us seeing that 1-minute demo and then it doesn't work, it's going to be hard to go from there for the rest of your presentation. So the recording of this presentation will be posted on the Saturday Academy website. Good question. Any other questions? There's always much longer awkward wait time in digital formats because you're all typing.
Any last questions about symposium preparation, symposium presentation, summary, or thank you letters? I know we just threw a lot at you, but
yes.
Now is the chance to get your questions in while Stacey is here and ready to answer them.
Besides the presentations and the keynote address, are there any other events at the symposium? There's usually a keynote followed by recognitions, which is usually recognizing teacher monitors and mentors that have made significant impact on ACE. And then you go to your presentations and that is all. In the past, I know some of you have experienced mentors. In the past, there used to be a professional poster presentation, but that is not done in the digital format. So if your mentor is an experienced mentor and asks about a poster session, we do a poster session this year. We're hoping next year we'll all be in person and we can have that poster session again. But yeah, if you have an experienced mentor, they might be wondering, what about the poster? Not this year. With that said, if they still want you to make a poster, because making those posters is a really good practice, and you might come away with a poster, or they might want it for their intern or for their organization, totally can do that. Just make sure that you're making that poster within your hours. So it's not something you're having to do in addition to all the hours you're working. You've been assigned to a number of different projects and not just one. Should I try and combine them as much as I can or pick a project? I think you should ask your mentor. Your mentor might say, these two little mini projects, yeah, we don't really need to mention them. Maybe when you practice, you find you're at 9 minutes. Okay, maybe you should throw those two in there. Your mentor might say, now these three can actually, they all really, while they seem disparate, could be actually underneath this singular umbrella and presented in that way. Or might say, really, let's just focus on this one. This is your most important project. Or they might say, yeah, I think we should present all 5, in which each project would get 2 to 3 minutes, 2 minutes each. So I would talk to your mentor, because everyone, your situation, I don't know it, it's always very different. But there have definitely been students who have presented multiple projects. You only have 10 to 12 minutes. It seems like a long time. It's not once you start talking about all the stuff, the cool stuff you're doing. Good question, Kylie. When were the ACE shirts supposed to be sent out? That's a Mara question. ACE t-shirts. I want to see them. What color are they this year?
They are green, a very lovely green this year.
I missed
they in the socially distanced ACE model, they are sent out at the end of the year. So you haven't missed anything. Hang tight, and information about your ACE shirt will be forthcoming.
They're my favorite summer shirts. They're my definitely go-to Science Fridays shirts.
I love that.
Yeah, they're always sciencey. I love them. Do we share our slideshows with someone, or do we share our screen? You are going to do both. During the presentation, you'll be sharing your screen and advancing your slides while presenting. However, sometimes computers bog down, tech issues occur, and it won't load, in which case you should have shared your slideshow with your teacher monitor. So that if for some reason the teacher monitor has to share your slide because your computer and things aren't working right, they can. So the sharing of your slideshow digitally through a link, if it's like a Google slide, or an email, if it's a file, is an important backup, just in case technology doesn't cooperate with you and allow you to share your own screen. So it's a backup. So you will be sharing your own screen like I am, but you should share it with your teacher monitors in case of a need. Are you going to be in a group of people with the same teacher monitor? I believe so, Mora. Right, you're going to try to keep the same teacher.
We try to keep the majority of people like that, but it really just depends on a couple of different factors. So final groups will be determined a little bit closer to symposium. So just continued flexibility is important.
And it's like I only have one ACE intern because I take Eugene. They don't have as many, so I don't think Mara is just going to have my intern be by themselves, right? So that intern would probably join another group, or I would get others. And there's some teacher monitors that maybe have like 10, 12 interns. And remember, these are 13 to 15 minutes minimum. That's with the presentation and the questions, and we need transition time. So if you end up getting to like 12 to 15 people, that's a really long amount of time to sit and watch presentations. So we're trying to keep kind of the presentations within like less than a 2-hour window. So I might be getting some other people's, mine might go somewhere else. Yeah. What would be a good time to start making your presentation? Now. Do it now. Now. Start it now. We recommended, remember during orientation, we said, it's really great to have some kind of journal or some kind of log. My recommendation was always to make a Google slideshow, and each day you work, just add a slide, and like, if you can include a picture, do it, and just write down what you did. If you've done that, you kind of have a journey already, and it's a matter of just making it into a real presentation. So I would start it now, at least start the conversation with your mentor now, because it does take time to practice and perfect a presentation that is clear in its message, is engaging, and fits within the 10 to 12 minute time window. So as soon as you can start kind of working on it, the better. What time will symposium start and end? I don't know the answer to that.
Details are on our website. I believe it's going to start at either 8:30 or 9, but you can see on the event page, and then the symposium will end when your group's presentations have finished. So unlike today, there's not going to be another big reunification of the group. You can just leave symposium when your presentation sessions presentations have completed.
Yeah. Oopsies. And I answered that the question about, is there anything other than keynote and presentation? What did the teacher monitor say to introduce the intern? I usually just say the intern's name and the title of their presentation. In the past, we were given lists with the student's school. So if I have that information, I usually just say that. So I usually just, and that's really just so that you know when it's starting instead of being like, all right, go. Right? It's nice to be presented. So usually the whoever's proctoring the presentations will just announce the person before the. Should it be more about our experience or the information that I learned? I think it should be a balance. I think it should be about your experience through what you learned. I think it really should be a balance of both. But I mean, it's going to be the same answer I've given. Talk to your mentor, right? Because you are representing your mentor's organization as well. And they may have some opinions on the flow of the presentation. They may say, hey, I love that you've incorporated your experiences, but let's make sure we have time to get in this piece of information because it's really important to get that piece of information in. I would say most of them are more informational and about the information you learned through your experiences.
Stacey, I did see a question up here for any suggestions for getting over stage fright. That question's from a serious introvert.
Yes, right? We all feel it. Practice. It's just a lot of it is about practicing. So if you go through and practice, and don't start by trying to do minutes. Practice 3 minutes with someone you're comfortable with. Say like, oh, text your friend, your best friend, and say, hey, do you have 3 minutes? I just want to see if I can explain what I'm doing this summer to you in 3 minutes. Start with that. Start where you can get to the point where you can talk with somebody and feel confident that you can explain what you're doing to someone you're comfortable with. Then broaden it beyond that. Go to another person that you're comfortable with, but you're not quite sure if they're going to understand what you're saying, and that will help you with when they ask questions. Then once you start getting people you're comfortable with that will ask questions, you can expand beyond that. Most mentors will have you practice in your internship. So most mentors will have you practice with them so that they can be there to help you. So it's a lot about starting small, starting comfortable, and then expanding from there. And the more practiced you are, the more you can stop questioning yourself. I don't have the videos on. So like I could be looking at Zoom screens and all your names. That gives me anxiety. So I got that hidden. I don't want to see your faces. You can do that too, so that you can limit to your focus to just the camera. Pick a spot on your computer you want to stare at, preferably just the camera itself. And if you feel yourself getting nervous, just look at that spot and take a deep breath. Know that if you stop for a few seconds to collect your thoughts, it's okay. That felt like forever to me, but it's okay. It doesn't feel like forever to the audience. What if someone's asking you a question you don't know the answer to? It's okay to say that. I'm a teacher. You all always ask me questions I don't know answers to. The response is a really good one. You say, I actually don't know. That's a great question. And if you have, some of you actually will be working beyond symposium. If you are someone who's working beyond symposium, feel free to bring that question back to your mentor and be like, hey, at symposium, they asked me this question and I wasn't, well, find the answer. Totally okay to say that. In fact, that's oftentimes some of the answers, and that's okay. You're doing some really complex stuff, right? And people will come up with crazy questions that you may not know the answers to. It still makes it a good question. And if it gets you thinking about what you're doing, that's okay. It's totally okay to not know all the answers. We don't expect that. And that's where practicing, that's where practicing in front of multiple audiences can help. So practicing in front of like your family or friends that don't know much of, maybe possibly much of anything that you're doing, they'll ask some off the wall questions and you might be able to go find those answers. And then practicing in front of your group that you actually work for, they'll ask different types of questions. And so if you kind of practice your presentation, then you'll kind of get the gist of maybe possibly some questions and you might be able to put the answers in already. Like I already knew you all were going to ask me about how long the presentations were. And so I always make sure I can put that in. the present. So practice helps as well. Okay. Okay, if you have more questions, this is not your only opportunity, I promise. It's just a good opportunity to ask now while you're thinking about it. Oftentimes questions come later, especially as you start to make the presentation. Keep in mind we have those resources that I showed you earlier in the presentation, which is going to Saturday Academy. There's a handbook. Oh, that's really far back. Maybe I won't be able to go back. You'll be able to see this presentation again. My slideshow will be in there. You have your teacher monitors and you have your mentors. So we aren't going to leave you in the lurch. There are plenty of opportunities to continue to ask questions before symposium. Okay? All right. If you have any more questions, make sure you ask your teacher monitors and mentors. We're here to help.
Yes,
we all want you to do well.
Yes, and Stacey, just like all of your teacher monitors, is a resource to you. So if you have questions that Stacey brought up, all of your teacher monitors have the same information. So don't hesitate to reach out to any of your assigned teacher monitors, and they will be happy to help you prepare for symposium, thank you letters, and summaries. So if there is no more questions, thank you so much, Stacey, for your time and all of this wonderful information presented in such a fun format. I know 2 o'clock is not always the most fun time in the afternoon, the most energetic time in the afternoon, but somehow you made it fun. So thank you so much.
You know, examples of what not to do while doing them. This is the best example. Well, I can't wait to hear your talks. I can't wait to see your and have fun in your internship. Learn, share your experiences. I'm excited for symposium. This is a great group of humans.
Yeah.
Have a great day, everyone.
Thanks, Stacey.
Thank you.
All right, interns. Well, with that, we can say what a great Midsummer conference really quickly. I just want to thank Dr. Rochefort, Shelby, Brisa, Annika, and Audrey for a wonderful, informative morning session about the different paths to college. And I also want to thank Diana Gordon and the OPSIS architecture teams, Sina, Nada, Liz, and Michael, and Bergen, and Dr. Wu Cheng Feng and Kyle Edick for all leading fantastic breakout sessions during our mid-morning. And to Teacher Monitor, of course, Stacey Johnson, who just led a very informative session on the second half of ASE's summer and what to expect at symposium. And lastly, I just want to thank all of our wonderful Saturday Academy staff who supported the conference today: Jackie Wers, Rachel Pecor Valdez, Walter Sebast, Emily Whitaker, Melissa Erickson, and Eric Polgar. As you can see, we have a huge team that came together to support the conference today. So back to you, interns. Start thinking about your symposium presentation title. I'll be emailing you a link soon to follow up to today's conference. And in addition to that, you'll be receiving a handbook you can reference as a plan for your presentation, and a recording of Stacey's presentation today. I'll also be linking you to where on the Saturday Academy website you can find a lot of the resources we talked about. Work with your mentor. They spend lots of time thinking about their own material, and they're going to be happy to answer any questions about your presentation at symposium. So with that, thank you for taking part in Midsummer Conference, and we look forward to see your smiling faces at symposium. Have a great afternoon. Take care, everybody.